What is the true origin of IHL from Solferino? Have you ever wondered how the rules of war came to be? The true origin of international humanitarian law is closely tied to a significant event known as the Battle of Solferino. This battle took place on June 24, 1859, during the Second Italian War of Independence. It was a chaotic and brutal conflict that left many soldiers wounded and suffering on the battlefield. One person who witnessed this devastation was Henry Dunant, a Swiss businessman. He was profoundly affected by the sight of injured soldiers left without care. This experience ignited a passion in him to improve the treatment of wounded soldiers during conflicts. After returning to his home in Geneva, he took action. In 1862, he wrote a book titled A Memory of Solferino. This book detailed the horrors he saw and proposed the idea of creating voluntary relief societies. These societies would provide care for wounded soldiers, regardless of which side they were on in the conflict. Dunant's book played a crucial role in sparking a humanitarian movement. This movement eventually led to the formation of the International Committee of the Red Cross. It also paved the way for the first Geneva Convention, which was adopted in 1864. This convention was groundbreaking, as it was the first international treaty to establish rules for the protection and care of wounded soldiers in armed conflict. The 1860 Geneva Convention, formerly known as the Convention for the Amelioration of the Condition of the Wounded in Armies in the Field, set legal standards for humane treatment during war. It focused on protecting the sick and wounded and established neutral organizations like the Red Cross to assist them. A Swiss Army officer named Guillaume Henry Dufour also played an important role in this development. He supported Dunant's ideas and chaired the diplomatic conference that led to the 1860 Convention. Together with Dunant and other founders, they formed the Committee of Five, which later became the International Committee of the Red Cross. This organization is central to the development and enforcement of international humanitarian law. The Battle of Solferino and the humanitarian response that followed mark a foundational moment for modern international humanitarian law. This event linked the practical care for were victims to the legal protections that were established. Understanding this origin is essential for grasping the Geneva Conventions of 1949, which expanded protections to include not just the wounded, but also prisoners of war and civilians. Today, the legacy of Solferino is reflected in the principles that govern armed conflict. These principles include the protection of those who are out of the fight due to injury or capture, the neutrality of medical personnel and facilities, and the establishment of humanitarian relief organizations. These guidelines aim to limit suffering during war and protect both civilians and combatants who are no longer involved in hostilities. In summary, the true origin of international humanitarian law from Solferino is rooted in the response to the human suffering witnessed during that battle. This led to the creation of legal frameworks and institutions dedicated to protecting victims of armed conflict, which remains essential to international humanitarian law today.